Hello, Facebook friends. Welcome to Storytelling Skills for Interviews. You're going to receive some really good ideas that you could put into action right now. As we're going through the program, please feel free to put questions in the comments section. I'll refer to them every now and then to make sure we can capture them and get them answered. I'm here with Paul Mayer, the president of the Shed Group. He's a human resources expert and has some fantastic ideas on how to use stories while you're interviewing. Paul, would you like to say a few things about yourself and the Shed Group?
Sure, just a couple things. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're seeing this video today. Glad to be here and share some thoughts and ideas about being a better interviewer. In my years of human resources, I think I've seen the best and the worst of interviewees. And people sometimes do a really great job, and other times they try hard, but they really don't succeed in getting their message across, and they don't deliver a real positive message. It hurts them in the process, because many times they might be a great candidate, but they didn't interview well, or they weren't able to talk about themselves in a way that was credible, entertaining, and helpful to the interviewer. So hopefully some thoughts tonight will help you along those lines. And if you're interviewing, or if you're using interviewing skills to get information from people during sales meetings or from presentations or whatever, I think it'll be a valuable time to spend together tonight.
Great. Now, in public speaking, I know the power of stories. It can make you more relatable, and it can make you feel more comfortable with yourself. How do you use stories in an interview?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the best way to describe it is that it gives you a chance to show yourself in a real human, understandable, and likable way. All too often, I think people come to interviews very, very prepared, and they have all the information, they've practiced, they've got it down, they've gone through it a couple times, they have all the codes down, they have all the algorithms in place, they have all the abbreviations there, they've got it all together. So when they then are asked the question, when they can present that information, it almost comes across like a robot, that they're very stiff, they're very firm, they many times are not animated in any way, they don't smile, they don't use gestures to emphasize points. They just give all the information out in kind of a rapid fire machine gun style. It doesn't impress the person who's receiving that, probably confuses them, and sometimes makes them wish that this interview would get over quickly because they're having a hard time being comfortable with the individual. So we like to use stories as to kind of bring to life the things that you've done, the successes that you've had, the problems that you dealt with, the innovation you've been able to show, your empathy for the people involved in the process, and to give the person that's receiving your story, whether it be a single person or a panel of people, if you're being interviewed by more than one person, the opportunity to see what you're really all about as a human being, not just as an interviewee. Because many times I say, be sure when you go for the interview, don't send a representative, make sure you go. And sometimes people are confused by that, but I think they are so practiced and so tight with their presentation that they really don't show who they really are during the interview.
So they come across more as a third person rather than themselves.
Yeah, I mean, without saying, talking in a third person way, it almost seems like they're representing somebody else, because they're just so focused on getting more information out, and not taking time really to listen to what the question was that they were asked.
Okay. So, I guess that's the typical way. Even, with the way I think of interviews too, you get asked a question and you answer kind of in bullet points. I mean, it's kind of like the verbal resume, but that kind of takes the personality out of it. Is that what I'm kind of hearing what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. If somebody asks a question, then you just come back with the facts, rather than saying something like, gee, I'm really glad you asked me that, because that was one of the most interesting projects I ever worked on. I really enjoyed it because of this reason, that reason. One of the problems we had during that particular episode was fixing this, and this is how we went about it. The team and I, we worked together, and you bring together with those little vignettes of information that make it sound real. Maybe even use humor a little bit every once in a while. Maybe something that kind of casts a little bit of humorous note on it, like, yeah, we worked all night, but it just seemed like we were just there 2 days, but we were there really 2 full days
Yeah.
by the time it was all over. So little things like that, which kind of change the pace, change the tone, show the interviewer that you really have a grasp of what it is that you did. And it's not that you just practiced the answer.
All right, so it gives real life examples then. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the power behind it. Rather
Sure.
than just saying that you did something, you give them a real life example.
Exactly. And even if you're using metrics, you can make those metrics come to life by talking about, well, this was the project that we had, and we increased the volume of the capacity for our trucks, for our mixing tanks, whatever it might be, and do it in a way so that the person knows that you were really involved in that, and you're not
Mhm.
just reading the end result. You're not reading the results from the last night's production line. You really have some understanding and sense what it took to make that happen.
Okay. Now, give a specific structure. I mean, because with once upon a time, it's that's the people think of stories.
Mhm.
What's the structure that you kind of look for with a story that you're going to use in an interview?
Well, there's a couple things. First off, I think each story that you have has to have it. It has to be interesting and it has to be truthful.
Okay.
I mean, if it's not interesting, the interviewer is going to catch on to that pretty quickly and you're going to lose their interest. And if it's not truthful, they're going to be able to tell whether you're fibbing here a little bit or you're exaggerating or you're saying things that are totally outrageous.
Hmm.
And your truthfulness and how they can trust you as an interviewee is probably not going to help you to be a selected candidate. So make sure you have uh, the ability to make it really interesting. Talk about it in an interesting way, not in a third person, 4 times removed from the truth way, and get down to the facts that you can really defend and show that you really understand. So have that grasped and be able to talk about the situation, the actual task at hand, the ability to really talk about what action you took, and then what the final result was. You'll hear people refer to that as STAR, STAR.
Hmm.
So if you can talk to those things in a way that shows that you really were there, that you just didn't hear about it, that you lived that problem, you worked with the solution, you really knew what to do. You might have had to do it a couple times because the first plan didn't work, or that what you thought was going to be perfect was less than perfect, so you had to do it again. It brings your humanness into it, and it shows that, in fact, you're willing to try new things. And if just because we did it one way, it didn't work, well, we got plan B. Maybe we
Right.
have plan C, D, and E as well.
All right.
Yeah.
So refresh our memories. In STAR, the A and the R is action and results. But what's the S and the T again?
Situation and task. What's the situation, and what was your task? What did you have to do? We had the river was rising. The situation, the river was overflowing because of heavy duty rains, and we had a manufacturing site that was vulnerable to the high water. So the situation was the water was rising. Our task was to get the machinery to higher ground.
Mm-hmm.
What were we going to do? What action did we take? Did we just say we'll never fix this and leave the plant? No, we took some action. We got tow motors in there. We put sandbags around. We did all the things. And the result was that we saved them, a couple $100,000 worth of machinery from being flooded out and being lost to the rising river. So simple example, but it's the basics really that count, because at the end of the day, there are difficult problems, but in many cases, the solution is really pretty simple if you think it through and you do it in a thoughtful, planful manner.
That's great. Yeah, that's a fantastic structure. I mean, so it's easy to remember, and it gives all the answers needed by the interviewer.
And I like to encourage people to think in a Wi-Fi kind of a way, WIFI. A lot of people think Wi-Fi has to do with the world that we're living today, but Wi-Fi really stands for what if, for instance. What if we tried this? For instance, we could do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I solved some problems was because I used what if thinking. I said, what if we do it this way? And here's what we could do. So you'll never know if you don't try. I think it was Wayne Gretzky who said, you miss every shot you don't take.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what can you do with the problems that you face? And how can you relate that to why you should be considered a stronger candidate than other candidates because you used some Wi-Fi thinking? You came to the boss and said, hey, boss, what if we do this? And the boss says, yeah. And you say, well, for instance, we could do this. And he goes, oh, okay. Not only do you have an idea, but you've got a real way of making it happen. Let's talk about it. Maybe we'll use it. But you don't want to bring them problems. You want to bring them solutions at the same time.
Great. And that's, yeah, it sounds like the same thing you'd want to do in an interview. Show that you're not just going to be able to identify things, but you're actually going to be able to bring value and solve that problem.
Exactly. Yeah. Because hopefully on your resume, you're going to show those things, and then you're going to be able to defend those things that you have on there as things that you did or your team did or your leadership group did to make it happen.
Right. Now, this is, the idea of storytelling is going to be a little bit foreign to people. So, especially in an interview, I don't think we want to be sitting in the middle of the interview and having the interviewer asking us questions and us thinking up of a story. How would you recommend that people actually prepare to present as in story form in an interview?
Well, you got to practice, and you have to practice not only being the interviewer, but the interviewee. So you want to say, okay, what questions would I ask me if I was going in for this job? If I'm applying for a human resource manager's job, what kind of questions are you going to ask? Now, there's going to be certain things that I have to have, and I have to show that I can do even before I get to the interview, because they're going to want to know my education and my background and experience. So some of those things are given, but they're going to want to know more about how did you deal with a certain people problem, being in the human resource side of things, and what solutions did you come up with that could show some certain metrics for saving time, saving money, reducing costs, all those sort of things. So it's a case of being able to say, okay, this is what I think they're going to ask me. And even if they don't ask you exactly that question, it'll probably be pretty close. So you'll have some chance to practice that a little bit. And when I say practice, I don't mean just think about it and kind of talk to yourself. I mean, you have to say the words. You just can't think the words. You have to hear yourself say them, maybe 2 or 3 times with somebody that you can practice with, or even just do it by yourself in the car, do it with a mirror, see what you look like when you answer a question. Because sometimes your body language when you're answering a question is a bit of a dead giveaway as well, that somebody's really kind of thinking up a good answer, looking at the ceiling and kind of rolling their eyes. And no, you have to still be straightforward and show that, in fact, that you have a real command of what you're talking about, and you're not just making it up on the fly.
Right. So that's practice that so that you can show that you have the confidence. Now, is there a way, because you don't necessarily know what the questions are going to be, how would you prepare? Would you prepare for some questions? Is there a way to adapt where you can kind of pull the story to match the question?
Well, you can say, if they ask you a question, you say, that's something very similar to what I did 3 years ago when I was the person responsible for shipping and receiving, something along those lines. I know it's not exactly what you asked me, but let me give you this example as to how I dealt with a problem very similar to that, and see if that kind of gives you a sense as to my abilities to handle the problem that you're talking about, or the circumstance that you mentioned. So, you can't be razor sharp, and you can't be laser focused for every question that they have. But if you have something that kind of encompasses what they're looking for, and give you a chance to say, well, I've got something very similar in my background that I think you'll see it applies to what you're asking. Let me just mention these few things to you. And then if it's not on mark, a good interviewer will say, well, that's really not what we're looking for. Do you have any other experiences in your background that could give me a better idea as to how you would handle a situation like this? You say, well, yeah. Another thing that I did, which is very similar to that, is just this. Now, and if you don't have a good answer for it, say, I've never really dealt with something like that. But if I had to deal with something like that, I have some thoughts about how I would handle it. So even though you can't answer it because of experience, you can answer it because of your knowledge, your ability to project into the future, and your willingness to try new things.
So a good start would be just to prepare by just going through your resume, and for each of the bullet points on the resume, kind of have a story that covers either each one or one that covers a bunch of them in your back pocket, and practice that. Would you say that's a good starting point?
Yeah. Can I defend what I put on paper? Because somebody's going to ask me at some point, well, tell me exactly how you did this. And you put down here that you saved the company $4.7 million in reduced waste and reduced scrap. How did you do that?
Mhm.
And you say, well, let me think about that for a second. No, you should have that ready to go. I'm
Right.
glad you asked me that because I'm pretty proud of saving the company 4.7 million because that went right to the bottom line. And we use a lot of that money for research and development. So the way we reduced scrap was this. And there you go. Go right at it. Tell them.
And I can see how people will get comfortable talking about stories, looking in the mirror or talking to a friend. But in an interview, that kind of gets it up to that next level. Very few things get people as nervous as an interview, especially if you haven't done it in a while.
Mhm.
Do you have any resources, or what would be your recommendation for people to be able to kind of kick that up a notch where they could present in a situation that's more interview-like?
Well, I think one of the things that you want to do is keep in mind that the interviewer is under some stress as well, because they want to make sure that they're choosing the right candidate. And if you can make them a little bit more comfortable so that they don't have to be on the edge of their seat and they don't have to be uptight about what questions they're asking, you're doing them a great favor and you're developing a relationship with them. And let's face it, people are hiring people that they like.
Hmm.
And if in fact you are a great candidate, but boy, you come across in a pompous, bombastic, know-it-all kind of a way, I'm not sure a lot of people want to hire that person. They want to hire somebody that's bright, able, experienced, but they can get along with because they're going to be working with this person and they're going to have to deal with this person more hours than their family does because they're at the office or the work site more than they are at home. So, they're looking to feel at ease and comfortable, and anything you can do to make them feel comfortable with you by letting them know that you've got skills, your abilities, but you also have things that you're working on. I'm trying to get myself better in this because I know that I'm going to need that further down the road. I need some more training in black belt. I need some more training in uh, um, um, SAP. I need some work in whatever the computer systems it is, whatever the case may be. I need to get to the next level of Excel proficiency.
Hmm.
But those are the things I'm working on, and I'm doing it slowly. And I'm just like everybody else. I'm a human being. I'm learning. I'm growing. Don't have all the answers because I don't know all the questions, number one. But at the same time, I'm willing to hear the questions so I can work on the answers as I go forward. So I think it's a way for a smart interviewee to be able to show that they're comfortable being interviewed, and they're going to help the interviewer handle and give a better interview themselves. So you're helping the interviewer interview you.
So on that topic, making the interviewer more comfortable, with with like a stand-up, with a presentation to a group. I know it's more powerful to make a speech, you focused on the audience. With the story, it's about ourselves. Is there a way that we can, even though we're talking about ourselves, kind of talk about how, should we be adding in how what we've done can alleviate the employer's pain, or is that too much, or how should we handle that?
Well, I think you want to make that as kind of the normal course of what you're talking about, because as I talk about what I've accomplished, when I'm talking about it, I'm saying, and what this helped do was to reduce this tension between the marketing and the R&D department, because there was always the conflict between those two. They were always looking at each other saying, what do you have? And the other one said, well, what are you selling? So it's a case of, oh, let's bring them together so that they can talk together in a common way. Now the interviewer and the interviewee they're at loggerheads perhaps, because the interviewer many times is trying to find reasons to interview you out of the process as opposed to interviewing you in
Hmm.
for whatever reason. What you're trying to do is show I should be interviewed in because I've got all these skills and abilities. So one of the things, Chad, I think is important is to not to talk too much,
Okay.
because I think sometimes people have so much to say, they just don't stop talking. I've interviewed people that I don't think they took a breath for 5 or 6 minutes at a time. They were just hyperventilated. I don't know how they did it, but they just kept on going. And it was very difficult for me as the interviewer to get a word in edgewise, because I wanted to stop them because they were just giving me too much information. It was an overload and I wanted to stop them. So I think a technique that you can use when you're talking about what it is you're wanting to let people know is that as you're talking along, you say, and I could really tell you more about this, but does this help you get the gist of what I was doing my involvement in this project, because if you like more, I can give you a lot, but I realize we're kind of tight for time during this interview. So if that's sufficient, I'll kind of stop right there and we can move on to something else, or I can go on to another topic if you'd like. Again, making the interviewer more comfortable so they don't have to feel like they're performing. They're just trying to let you talk, but you're helping guide the way with it as well. So you're not going down too much information in one area and then the interviewer doesn't get a chance to talk about something that they really wanted later on. I have sat in on many interviews where candidates will do that, and I can just see the other people on the interviewing panel saying, "Hey, that's great. No, that's plenty. You've handled it right there. Let's move on to something else now."
Mhm.
And that works great.
So you want to have your detail like segregated into levels. So you give your story where you get then your result, and then you kind of ask if that's enough information. Now, let's say it wasn't enough information. Is there a way to kind of convert story into conversation so that you're engaging the interviewer with that more detail?
Yeah. Well, I think the idea then would be you take that opportunity to say, well, this is great because there are some additional things that I think you'll find very helpful to your company here, because I've had a chance to do my research on the company. I can see one of the areas where my skills in this particular area would be very helpful to you. And let me tell you a little bit more about that, because now you can get a better flavor for not only what I was doing in this particular area, but what also I bring that we haven't had a chance to talk about yet. So you're moving the interviewer along and trying to help them see the full spectrum of your skills and abilities, not just one thing at a time.
All right. This is interesting, and I think that conceptually people would be interested in this. It might be helpful if we give some examples. So if you're open to it, maybe we can do some role playing. You can
Sure.
act as the interviewer. I can give it a try with the stories, and then you can give me some feedback at the end. And then people could see what worked, what didn't, and they can adjust their stories accordingly.
Sure. So let's pretend that you're applying for a sales position. How would that be?
Okay.
All right. And I'm the head of sales, and I'm going to be interviewing for this regional sales position that we have open for the New England area. Doesn't make a difference what the product is. It's just it's a sales spot, So I would say something like Chad. Now, here in the New England area, we've got a lot of different styles and the different way people do business. The Bostonians are a little different than the Mainers, and the Mainers are different than those people down there in Connecticut and New Hampshire. That's a whole state of mind unto itself. So how is a salesperson, how do you find dealing with all these different types of personalities and styles?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Paul, it's very interesting, going around the country and talking to different people. And I found that a good way of doing that and building relationships with people is eating, local foods. I found, especially going, down to certain areas in the South, they take pride in their barbecue. And when you ask them about it and they bring you to their favorite place, you can really get them to talk about it. And there's been some times where I've been down in Austin, and a couple of clients have brought me to places. I was able to really build a rapport. And I find the same is in New England too. I mean, you can have people in Rhode Island arguing how their clam chowder beats out Maine's, and it's just really fun, and it gives people a real chance to talk about something other than business, so you can build that relationship. So that's where I've had some success.
So now that's great, and I think that's a terrific way to go about it. And so, but after you're beyond that, and after you've kind of broken the ice and you've talked about the local delicacies that they like and that sort of thing, now you're down to selling the sheet metal products that we have here. How do you deal with the different ways, and maybe tell me about some difficult people that you've had to deal with over the years?
Sure, and I found it really is about the relationship. And you're right with difficult people. Some people, especially in our industry, can be very, very tight and very closed. So it can be really hard to crack that shell.
So how do you do it? How do you make that happen?
It's there was a time, there was this client I had in Western Mass who I talked to him for months I was just, he was respectful, I was respectful, but I kept in touch with him, and I would give him information that he would find helpful. So just a slow drip. I wouldn't just call and say, "Hey, give me business." I'd call, find out what he's working on. I give him information, and it turned after a couple of years actually of just building that relationship. I got my biggest order ever,
Yeah. So
and
you
that's
became kind of a trusted advisor to him when he didn't even know it.
That's right. You go and you give him information, and he would ask about the state of the industry, and we talk, and and not pressure. I mean, I was always there, and he knew my products, and he knew why I was there.
Hmm.
I never threw it in his face, and we just built that rapport. And after that was done, it's just I had that one opportunity, and since we're able to perform, it turned into future sales as well.
That's true. Sometimes our manufacturing plant goes down and we fall behind schedules. And so how do you deal with customers now that are pretty unhappy that we're missing delivery dates?
I'll tell you, there's been some times in my past where I really should have been called the chief apology officer.
Mm.
It happens, especially now with people with tight manufacturing timelines. It's incredibly important to get those products in on time. But when there are hiccups, to communicate immediately and often, to make
Mm.
sure they know exactly what's happening as soon as possible. Be transparent so they know they know what to expect, and don't overpromise.
Mm.
So once you have that issue, explain to them exactly what it is, how it impacts them, what you're doing to resolve it,
Mhm.
and make it. Be careful what you're promising, but you also don't string them along.
Mm.
Make sure that you're communicating them that you're going to be able to give them results.
Mhm.
But be realistic about it and make sure that they're clear.
So if you were sitting in my seat and you were interviewing candidates for this job, what's the biggest thing you're looking for in a real quality salesperson for this New England region?
I mean, first and foremost, you want someone who's going to be honest and transparent. You're going to want somebody who's going to be able to communicate with the clients, but also communicate with you. There's certain sales targets. You have certain numbers you need to meet, and I can't wait until the end of the month to say, boss, we're not going to hit this. Or even on the flip side, hey boss, we're going to have a banner month. Because to your point with the manufacturing side, you have to be able to set those expectations. So
Mhm.
make sure that's communicated. What your targets are for this month, what your targets are for next month, what the chances of success are, and how that impacts the manufacturing portion, how it affects your numbers, how it affects finance, and how it affects the client. To make
Mm.
sure that you are aware of all those things, obviously without me, badgering you every 2 minutes.
So in order to fix those delayed delivery dates that we had,
Mhm.
uh, we were running the line probably longer and harder than we should have, and we put out some off-spec product. People weren't happy with that then. They were not happy that things were getting there delivered late. Now they're getting things delivered on time, but it's off spec.
Mhm.
You're the face of the company out there. How do you deal with those things?
That's it's again, it's the transparency, I mean, accepting responsibility, working to improve, uh,
Hmm.
giving them incentives to stay, and it really depends on what we're doing for that customer. I mean, it's as I get acclimated with the company, and I understand how we compensate for off-spec products. Is it is it an expedited fix? Is it what's the remedy? And to
Hmm.
make sure that those remedies occur, and then spend a lot of face time with the client too, to see that I'm not hiding under my desk.
Hmm.
That although it's probably going to be Zoom time these days,
Yeah.
but just to make sure that they know that I'm not running from them, and they're going to yell at me,
Yeah.
and we deserve it. We messed
Hmm.
up, and it's my job to take it, to again show that the apologetic face, to get beyond it, and to keep them satisfied.
Sounds like you've had to deal with that in the past.
It's just one of those things. I mean, it's even with high quality organizations, mistakes are made. This sometimes it's even the client's fault. They give you the specs and it's wrong. Sometimes blueprints are misread. It happens. We try to mitigate those things, but those are all things that happen, and we have to minimize their occurrences. But when we do, we have to fess up to it, and we have to address it, and we have to make the customer comfortable that moving forward, the risk of that is low.
What's your view about bringing customers to the site to see our manufacturing process and see how we make this stuff?
No, I think that's fantastic. I mean, one, people love to come and look at that stuff. Even the people who don't really understand how it works, just seeing that it's impressive, and it shows that we're open, that we are transparent. Come look at how we do these things, because there are people who really know how it works. So they can come in and they can see, and then they can have the confidence that they need to make their decisions.
Now, is that just a thought, or have you done that?
I've done that. I worked for a small shop when I was younger. Now we had a vacuform mold business, and that because we were small, the confidence level of the big client was low. So when they came in and they saw our process, they saw the machines, and they saw our expertise, it increased their confidence in us, and they gave us a chance, and we got all their business, which was fantastic, because they were shipping things overseas and they were getting delays, but having a small shop nearby really helped them to get their goals.
Well, we take a lot of pride in our manufacturing here. We got a long service workforce here as well. So when people come through here, they see our people and they know that they're skilled craftsmen. They know what they're doing. They can see our quality control. They see our quality inspection coming in, and they can see our quality control going out. So not only are we making good products, we know that the raw materials that we're using are to our specs to begin with. So we're not making products that are off spec because of something that we came in that was not right to begin with. So yeah, so we're continually trying to do that as well.
Yeah. So this was a great exercise. You caught me off guard on a few of those things. It's funny. I had to kind of twist some of my experience into the manufacturing world. So all the stories I told were actually things that happened, just not necessarily in manufacturing.
Yeah, that was good. You did well. Yeah. And it was very believable, and it came across in a way that, I really want to tell you about this, because, we get beat up sometimes when we're out there in the field, and we just have to kind of take it and hope that we can come back stronger next time. Yeah.
It's funny. The small shop one was a true story. When I left college, it was during a recession. So I actually worked with my uncle in his machine shop, and we did vacuform molds. And I made a mistake on one of the molds, but no one noticed it. If you around Halloween time from American Greetings, you'll see a pumpkin dish about this big, and the stem's pointed that way. It was supposed to be pointed that way. I read the blueprint wrong.
Oops.
So no one noticed, thankfully. 30 years later, it's still out there.
I think with that exercise we do, one thing we like to emphasize is that, if you do have those stories to tell, that you kind of bring it, and I think this would be appropriate for this organization too, because I see some synergies between when this took place and the position that you're looking to fill here at the Ajax company. So it's not just a story that kind of flies out there by itself. It's one that you can bring back and say, this could work here as well. And the experiences that I've had from what I learned by doing this particular project, I think could be very beneficial here, not only to the manufacturing side, but certainly to the bottom line, because everybody wants to make sure the bottom line is as strong as it possibly can be.
So so the improvement of what I did would be not only just to tell the story, but connect the dots. So in case the interviewer is not really a skilled interviewer, I connect all the dots for them so that they can, they see the relevance of it and how it affects them.
Or ask the question, not in a accusatorial way, but something like, so that's what I did at my old company. Do you see that having a value here at your firm?
Mhm.
And they go, yeah, it's exactly what we're looking for. Yeah. Or no, we really don't get involved in that much. And I said, well, that's okay. But, I think a lot of what I learned when I was doing that is transferable to a variety of different situations. And it's something that I'll have in my toolbox that I can use down the road when I might need it.
Okay. One of the questions that just popped in was, we always get that dreaded question, what are your weaknesses? So is there a way to use stories to kind of project, confidence in a weakness that we have or are trying to overcome?
Yeah, well, say the weakness, but talk about what you're doing to make it better. A weakness I have is that I'm not as up to date on Excel as I would like to be, but I'm taking an Excel course now and I'm doing it tutorially. So I spend some time on it every week and I'm getting better at it on an ongoing basis. I know that's an area that I need to strengthen and it's not going to get any worse. Actually, I'm going to get better at it because I do it, and yeah, I know I can improve my interviewing skills and I'm doing interviewing better than I had before. And I'm really proud to say that I think my skills have really, really improved since I've been working at it and taking some online training to make myself better in that area. So, don't to say, well, that's a tough question. I don't know. The only weakness I have is I guess I work too hard. Oh, please.
Yeah, I'm a workaholic. That's my weakness.
Yeah. So, and then you say, well, then you have other problems as well. So, just come out and tell it. I mean, again, it's the truthfulness side of it. If you're telling a story, it's got to be truthful. Right. And it's got to be factual. And nobody's perfect. And I've had some problems with this or that in the past, but I've overcome it. I've gotten better. And as new technology comes out, I'm not a technology wizard. So I have to spend some time working at it so that I can use my new phone or my new laptop or whatever it is. But once I got it and I move on. So as much as I might be behind the technology when it comes out, I catch on pretty quickly.
Yeah. Now, I just thought of a question. Is there a topic or something where we shouldn't use stories?
Well, I mean, you could become a pathological or a serial storyteller, I suppose, and everything's a story. Yeah. It has to fit the time, and you can't stretch it, or you can't kind of make something a story that really doesn't have to be a story. Some things can be answered pretty quickly with straightforward information, facts and figures, one sentence, two sentence. But you're looking for that opportunity to expand upon something that brings out more of your skills and abilities. Mm-hmm. So I think you really need to practice and know when a story can be told and when it couldn't be told, when you should use some humor, when you shouldn't use some humor, when you should speed it up and when you should slow it down. There's a pace and a cadence to all this. And I think you get better at that by practicing. Again, you can do it by yourself, that's fine, but you're better if you're doing it with somebody that you can trust and is willing to give you some honest feedback. You don't want somebody to say, oh yeah, you're a perfect interviewer, you're great. Come on, we know that's not true. Come on, we all can get better at what we do. Right. So, practice with a friend or a coach or a fellow worker or, a spouse, family member that's going to be able to give you some feedback. And you'll take it as good criticism and not just something to make you feel bad about yourself, because that's not the case. You want to get better. And the only way you can do that is by practicing. I mean, the all-star third baseman doesn't just become an all-star third baseman. He's out there early, stays late, takes a lot of grounders and works at it because he knows someday he's going to hit that hard, fast one that he's never seen before, and he's got to be ready for it. It's just like an interview. Somebody's going to interview you something that you're not prepared for, but you need to have enough experience and background to say, okay, I can take care of this. I got it. I'm going to answer this with this kind of a response that's going to make him like me more and realize that I've got a lot of skills.
Now we have a question. It's kind of the opposite, or not the opposite, but the tangent of what we're saying, that don't be too chatty. What if your interviewer is just continually talking? Is there a way to interject without being rude? A story.
Yeah, that is a difficult one, because you like them to be able to know that they're in charge, and you want them to be in charge. But if the clock is ticking away and you've been there for a while and you really haven't had a chance to talk about some of the things that you'd like to talk about, you say, why did I even bother to come here? You know, I'm wasting my time. And if they do invite me back, I don't know what they're going to invite me back on, because I haven't talked about anything, you know. So you might go along and they're talking and talking and talking, and you might feel comfortable in saying, you know, I really appreciate all the information you told me. That makes me think about something that happened with my company. I'd like to tell you about it, and an exercise that I just worked on at the company, or an assignment that I had that you might find very interesting for here at your company. So don't take the interview away, but offer a suggestion. And they might say, well, yeah, we'll talk about that later, but I want to tell you about, you know, my vacation house in the Bahamas, and then I got 3 grandchildren that I want to talk to you about, and I just got a new dog.
Yes.
If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. And there's not much you can do about it, but you'd like to be able to, if you could, get them back on track for why they should be talking about business things and things that are important about you, so they can move you on in the next process.
Now, for someone who's just out of school, should they be telling like work stories, or something about their school, or how does someone who has limited or no full-time work experience integrate stories?
Well, I think if you looked at some team projects that you might have had in some of the classes where you were put together on a team, what was the role you played on the team? You know, were you the chairman of the little exercise or the project that you were on? Were you a no-show? Did you really do anything? Did you take part? Did you really come up with ideas? Or were you a person who came up with some creativity and some new innovative ways of doing things? Or did you just kind of go with the flow? Were you involved in campus activities or office campus activities for charitable events, or for sporting events or homecoming, or whatever the case may be? Because you can show your leadership and your style by the type of things that you're involved with, and not just by the courses that you've taken. Many times I've seen some terrific 4.0 students that absolutely some of the brightest people I've ever met, but I don't think they ever did anything else. They just studied and they worked hard, and they were very, very good at what they did. But I don't even know if they had a hobby, or if they did anything on the weekend aside from go to the library. You know? And we're hiring the whole person. We're not just hiring somebody who's a 4.0 standout student. The person who might be a bit less than that, 3.5, 3.25, but was involved in this, that, maybe played a sport, maybe got involved in club sports, whatever the case may be. That's the person who's a team player and knows what it means to carry the load and do what they have to do for the rest of the team. It's not just all about them. I find many times people will send me their cover letter, and I just had one recently. The cover letter, it was a page long, it was way too long. And on that page, the use of I, me, and my was 75 times in one page. You know, and I'm saying to myself, does this person do it all by themselves, or have they ever worked on a team? Have they ever been part of a responsible organization that lets them help others and others help them? So, you know, want to present yourself in a way that shows, in fact, that although I'm early in my career, the things that I've done, whether it be in high school or in college or summer jobs, whatever it be, that I've really learned from these, and I've gained experience in a variety of ways.
Great. And believe it or not, our time is almost up. This time has flown by.
Wow.
So I'll check the chat again for questions, and then we can get back to people afterwards. If you have questions that you haven't put in, and you want to go to my website, www.latebloomerbook.com. That'll give you every way to contact me with questions. And Paul, is there a way that people can contact you for more information? Or
Sure. The company that I run is the company called the Schegg Group, SCHEGG Group, GROUP. And our email address is pmayer, MAYER, @scheggroup.com. The Schegg Group was named after John and Barbara Schegg, who were the founders of the business. And since then, they've moved on to other things. And now we're running the business here in Shelton, Connecticut. And if you'd like to know more about what we do, please look us up on our website, scheggroup.com. And you can see some videos of us up there and some of the things that we do. And give me a call. I'd be glad to talk to you and see if I can be of help.
Great. And as you can tell in this interview, Paul is very knowledgeable, and I've known Paul for several years, and he is as friendly in person as he is online. So, Paul, thank you very much for your time today. For all of you out in Facebook land, thank you very much for your time. And check back for other programs coming in the future. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it.
Thanks.